This is Maximum India, an exploration of Indian music. I'm Hari Srinivasan. In this segment, we'll learn about the instruments that help make Indian music unique. We all say the world is getting smaller and that cultures are coming together and blending in ways that make them more similar. While it's true that around the world we're eating more of the same foods and sometimes even watching the same YouTube videos, oddly enough, through all this, there's something so unique about the music of India that you can place it almost immediately. Shubha Shankaran is an Indian sitar player.
If you sometimes listen to some commercials these days, you suddenly hear those sounds. You call it the Indian sounds.
It is really, really proliferated in commercials, movies. It's used all the time.
Dr. Natalie Sarazin teaches Indian music and culture at the College of Brockport in New York State. This unique sound, the Indian sound, comes from musicians playing a unique set of instruments that use strings and bells, drums and flutes to create sounds like nothing else in the world. A lot of these instruments you've probably never heard of. In fact, many Indians have never heard of some of them either, and we'll hear those later. But to start, as Natalie Sarazin says,
there's a few instruments that you might have heard of, such as the sitar, and that would be a classical instrument. Or tabla.
We'll start with the tabla. As you can hear, the tabla is a drum. That's Anubrata Chatterjee you hear playing. But calling the tabla a drum is not quite true. Anubrata explains.
And it's a drum of two pieces. There are two separate drums. One is the treble, the other one is the bass.
There are different combinations of sounds on it, 13, 14 kind of main sounds that you can hear.
To help drummers keep all those sounds straight, they've developed special words. They're called bowls that correspond to the sound the drums make.
There are some words like na, which you can literally imitate and play. Like. Then there is tete, thun, na na na. And then there is the three major bass drum strokes. One is ghe, ghe ghe, ghe ghe. So these are the elementary strokes. And then what you play basically is a combination of all these.
This is the sitar, probably the most recognizable Indian instrument. If you've never seen a sitar, it looks a bit like a guitar, but the neck is much, much longer, up to 3 feet long. That's Shubha Shankaran you hear playing.
The main part of the instrument, which creates the sound, is made of a pumpkin. The rest of the instrument is made of wood. And we have 6 main strings at the upper level, out of which the first one is the main string, on which most of the melody is played, and then you have 4 drone strings that you strum. And I'm just going to strum it so you get a sense of it.
As Shubha said, there's one main playing string on the sitar.
It's the main playing string that most of the melody is played on.
You play that with a pick with your right hand. And just like the guitar, your left hand runs up and down the neck. Now, remember how Shubha talked about creating a drone?
You have 4 drone strings that you strum.
A drone is probably the most important sound in Indian music. It's the drone that gives you the broad outline you need to create your art. Every other note you play in Indian music, you play against a drone. Playing the drone strings on a sitar is one way of creating a drone. But there's actually an Indian instrument that's used to play nothing but the drone. That's a 4-string device called the Tanpura. The Tanpura is completely unique to India and possibly the oldest Indian instrument there is. That's according to Nandini Manesh, the director of Banyan Tree, a company that puts on Indian folk music festivals.
I'm not aware of something similar to this anywhere else. At least till now I haven't come across. And I've been asking, and whoever I ask, they say, well, it's always been there. It's always been there.
So tabla, sitar, and tanpura are the most common Indian instruments. But India is a huge country with more than 1 billion people. And until relatively recently, it was a rural country. There weren't a lot of roads outside the big cities, and villages remained isolated. You'd have areas made up of these tiny communities cut off from the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And as Natalie Sarrazin points out,
each one of those areas, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds, has their own set of instruments.
She says you can go into some museums in India and
there's just whole rooms filled with different tribal instruments that other people in India won't even see. They're very, very regional. Different types of drums, different types of clackers or stringed instruments.
You're hearing an instrument called a Sarangi. It's played mostly in Rajasthan, an Indian state on the Pakistani border. The Sarangi that you're hearing was made by cutting the roots and branches off an old tree.
It has some strings that are for the main melody, and it has strings that are these resonant strings that do the drone. So that when you're playing the melody, there's a beautiful haunting sound that comes as these other strings are resonating.
You'll find another unusual instrument in a Rajasthani band. That's a double flute called the sitara. The sitar is played not like a Western flute. You hold it like a recorder or a clarinet. And just like the tabla is 2 drums in one, Natalie Sarrazin says,
Satara is 2 flutes, and the one flute plays the melody, and the other flute plays the drone sound. Now, in order to keep the drone going, one of the amazing things for this instrument is that they use circular breathing. And this is a technique where they breathe in through the nose and they keep some of the air in their mouth and they never stop to take a breath.
But India isn't just known for its proliferation of string and wind instruments. All across the country, from the frozen north to the broiling south, you'll find a remarkable assortment of different kinds of drums. We'll start in Kerala, a state down south near the Arabian Sea. This is a drum from Kerala called the chenda.
Chenda is from Kerala, and it's part of the Melam where 100 instrumentalists, drummers play together, and it's stunning when you see that.
Melam is the word basically for drum ensemble. It's a double-headed drum. It's pretty large. It's hung around the neck, and it's played with sticks.
This is another drum from Kerala. It's called the erdika. The one you're hearing is being played by a drummer named Nanda Kumar.
Musical notes.
This could be defined as the only percussion instrument that sings. he claims that all over the world there's only one percussion instrument where melody is played.
There are actually songs written for the Erika. The drum is only heard in temple rituals in Kerala. And this drum, it's called the mizhavu and only heard in temple-related theater. Here's Nandini Manesh.
It belongs to a tradition uninterrupted for 2000 years. And this particular instrument is the main accompanying instrument for Kudiyattam.
Kudiyattam are mythological plays about gods and demons that are performed outside temples and include elaborate dances. The drums are part of the performance. Just north of Kerala is the state of Maharashtra. There was a traditional folk dancing style there called tamasha. The drum you're hearing, called the naal, was the accompaniment in a tamasha performance.
These were women dancers who would travel from village to village and they would sing and dance. These women were very creative. The songs were composed by them, written by them, and we hear that at one point they also carried a lot of significant historical information with them.
And there are other drums. In Punjab in the northwest, there's the dhol, which is played at weddings and during harvest festival bonfires. And way up in the north, near China, there's a drum called the pung.
It has been a very, very traditional instrument for many centuries, part of Nam Sankirtan. Nam Sankirtan is chanting God's name.
The pung is a long drum that you wear with a strap over your neck. The drummer dances while he plays, and the dance has special steps that tell the story of the beginning of life.
The walk of different animals and sound of the wind and the river, and those are the essential inspirations for different sounds and footwork.
The world is getting smaller. India has changed rapidly in the last few years. It's losing its culture of remote village life and becoming more and more like every other industrial country. That's having an impact on Indian music, too. This is U. Srinivas. He plays in the style of traditional Indian classical music, but that's not a sitar you hear him playing. It's a European instrument, a mandolin. U. Srinivas loved the mandolin from when he was a little boy, but when he chose to start playing it instead of a traditional Indian instrument, he says he took a lot of heat.
Some of the great critics, they started asking me why you have chosen this instrument since there are so many other traditional instruments, because they were not sure whether this can be used for the Indian classical music.
He's made it work, and so have a lot of other Indian classical musicians, who now use flutes, guitars, and violins to replace the sound of the sitar. In the case of Srinivas, he's made it work by modifying the sound that a mandolin makes.
The acoustic mandolin sounds like this. But I have modified like this.
A performer like U. Srinivas certainly demonstrates that while cultures are merging, their music can still remain unique. You can still have the Indian sounds, even if you're playing them on European instruments. And though critics were hard on him about his choice of the mandolin, as far as U. Srinivas is concerned, it's not the critics who have the last word, it's the audience.
Most rewarding thing is when you play on the stage and when people clap. That is the most rewarding thing.
Thanks for listening. I'm Hari Srinivasan for Arts Edge, a program of the Education Department of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.